I wasn't invited to my own mother's birthday party. At my house. Let that sink in for a second. The party was at my home, my living room, my kitchen, my furniture. And somehow, I wasn't on the guest list. I found out a week before when I accidentally saw the email thread on my sister's laptop. Every name was there. My dad, my brother, my aunts and uncles, even my mom's book club friends. Everyone except me. When I asked my sister about it later, she shrugged and said, "You're hosting, so we didn't think you needed an invitation." Hosting, not celebrating, not included, just hosting. That's when I realized something I'd been avoiding my entire life. I wasn't part of my family. I was the help, the backdrop, the person who made sure everyone else had a good time while standing on the outside looking in. This is the story of how I became invisible in my own life, and how I finally decided to stop disappearing. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to figure out where I fit in my family. My older sister has always been the golden child, confident, assertive, the one everyone turns to when decisions need to be made. My brother is the capable one, steady, reliable, good with his hands and his money. And then there's me, the quiet one, the one who's just there. Growing up, I told myself it didn't matter. Families have dynamics. Someone has to be the peacekeeper, right? Someone has to be the one who doesn't rock the boat. But as I got older, I started noticing a pattern. Family vacations were planned without asking my schedule. Holiday dinners were arranged around everyone else's availability. Even small things, like where we'd meet for coffee, were decided before anyone thought to check if I could make it. And every time I felt that sting of being overlooked, I'd tell myself the same thing. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I'm overthinking this. My husband, James, saw it differently. He'd watch my family interact with me and shake his head. "They don't even realize they're doing it," he'd say. "But that doesn't make it okay." Last year, James and I bought a house. It's nothing fancy, but it's ours, and it's spacious. 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, an open-concept living and dining area that's perfect for gatherings. My sister noticed immediately. "This place is amazing," she said the first time she visited. "You know what? We should throw Mom's 60th birthday here." I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. Maybe this was my chance to be involved, to contribute something meaningful, to finally be part of the planning instead of just showing up. "That sounds great," I said. "I'd love to help organize it." My sister smiled. "Perfect. I'll handle the details." And she did. All of them. Over the next few weeks, she planned the menu. She booked the caterer. She designed the invitations. Every time I tried to offer input, she'd wave me off. "I got it handled," she'd say. "Don't worry about it." I told myself she was just being helpful. She's always been a take-charge person, but there was something about the way she dismissed my suggestions that felt off. Like I was getting in the way instead of contributing. 2 weeks before the party, I texted her, "Hey, do you need me to pick up anything? Decorations, supplies?" She replied an hour later, "Nope, all set. Just make sure your house is clean." Just make sure your house is clean. I read that message 3 times, trying to figure out why it bothered me so much. It wasn't rude exactly, but it wasn't warm either. It was transactional, like I was the venue, not the host, and definitely not family. James saw me staring at my phone. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing," I said. "Just sister stuff." But it wasn't nothing. It was the same pattern I'd been living with my whole life. I was there to facilitate, to provide, to make things easier for everyone else. But I was never actually part of the equation. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was reading too much into things. The party was still a week away. Maybe once it actually happened, I'd feel differently. Maybe I'd feel included. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I'd been feeling it for years, and I'd been ignoring it for just as long. I wasn't part of my family's inner circle. I was orbiting around it, close enough to see everything, never close enough to touch. 1 week before the party, my sister stopped by to drop off some decorations. She set her laptop on my kitchen counter while she ran back to her car to grab another box. The screen was still open. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just glancing over to move it out of the way when I saw the email subject line. Final guest list for Mom's birthday. I hesitated. Part of me knew I shouldn't look, but a bigger part of me couldn't stop myself. I opened the thread. The list was detailed. My dad's name, my brother and his wife, my sister and her husband, my Aunt Linda, my Uncle Greg, my mom's best friend, Sharon, even her book club members, people I'd only met a handful of times. 23 names in total. I scrolled slowly, looking for my name. Maybe it was at the bottom. Maybe it was in a separate email. It wasn't there. I read through the list again, and again. My hands started shaking. Then I saw the replies. My brother had written, "Looks good. Should we add her name?" He didn't even say my name. Just her. My sister's response came 2 minutes later. "No need. She'll be busy hosting anyway." Busy hosting. I closed the laptop carefully, like if I moved too fast, the words would somehow become more real. My chest felt tight. Not angry tight. Not yet. Just confused. Hollow. When my sister came back in, I was standing in the exact same spot, staring at the counter. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. "I'm fine." She didn't notice. That night, I told James. I tried to say it calmly, like it wasn't a big deal, but my voice cracked halfway through. "They didn't put me on the guest list." James looked at me like I'd just told him someone died. "What?" "For the party. At our house. I'm not on the guest list." "That's insane," he said. He wasn't yelling, but his voice was hard, angry. "You need to say something. Right now." "Maybe it's a mistake," I said. Even as the words came out, I knew they weren't true. "It's not a mistake," James said. "Your brother literally asked if they should add you, and your sister said no." I sat down on the couch. I felt like I was underwater. Everything was muffled and slow. "Maybe she didn't mean it like that," I said. "Maybe she just thought since I'm hosting I don't need a formal invitation." James sat next to me. "Do you hear yourself? You're making excuses for them." He was right. I was. Because that's what I'd been doing my whole life, making excuses, convincing myself that I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, that if I just stayed quiet and kept trying, eventually they'd see me. But they didn't see me. They never had. "What do I even say?" I asked. "Tell them the truth," James said. "Tell them it's messed up. Tell them you're hurt." I thought about it. I imagined the conversation. My sister getting defensive. My brother saying I was overreacting. My mom saying it wasn't a big deal. And me, once again, apologizing for having feelings. "I don't know if I can," I said. "Then don't go," James said. "Seriously, if they're not going to treat you like family, why should you show up?" But I knew I would show up, because that's what I always did. I showed up. I smiled. I made everything easy for everyone else, even when it broke something inside me. "Let's just see how it goes," I said. "Maybe once the party actually happens, it'll feel different." James didn't say anything. He just put his arm around me and let me sit there in the quiet. But I already knew how it was going to feel. I'd felt it 1,000 times before. I'd just never let myself name it. I wasn't going to be a guest at my mother's birthday party. I was going to be furniture, a table to set things on, a place to happen. Not a person, not a daughter. Just there. The morning of the party, I woke up at 6. I couldn't sleep. My stomach was in knots, but I got up anyway and started cleaning. I vacuumed the living room. I scrubbed the kitchen counters. I arranged the chairs in the dining room just the way my sister had specified in her last email. James watched me from the hallway. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I know," I said, but I kept cleaning. The guests started arriving at 2. I opened the door for each of them, smiling, saying hello. Most of them hugged my mom first. A few hugged my sister. My brother got handshakes and pats on the back. I got polite nods. "Oh, hi, sweetie," my Aunt Linda said as she walked past me. "Where's the bathroom?" I pointed down the hall. She didn't say anything else. My mom's friend Sharon came in next. She handed me her coat. "Can you put this somewhere safe?" she asked. Then she walked into the living room without waiting for a response. I stood there holding her coat, watching everyone gather around my mom. She was laughing, radiant, happy. My sister stood next to her, one arm around her shoulders, beaming like she'd orchestrated the whole thing, which, I guess, she had. I hung the coat in the closet and went to the kitchen. There were drinks to refill, appetizers to arrange, plates to set out. I kept myself busy because staying busy meant I didn't have to stand in the living room and feel invisible. At one point, I tried to join a conversation. My Uncle Greg was telling a story about a fishing trip. I sat down on the arm of the couch, listening, waiting for a natural break to say something. But before I could, my brother interrupted with his own fishing story, and the conversation shifted. I sat there for another minute, silent, and then I got up. No one noticed. James found me in the kitchen. "Hey," he said quietly. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. I wasn't fine, but I didn't know how to explain that I felt like a ghost in my own house. "Let's leave," James said. "Seriously, we can just go upstairs, or go for a drive. You don't owe them this." "I can't," I said. "It's my mom's birthday." "And you're her daughter," James said. "But they're not treating you like one." Before I could respond, my sister called from the living room. "Okay, everyone, it's time for the cake and presents." I walked out and stood near the doorway. My sister had set up a small table with gifts stacked neatly on top. My mom sat in the center of the room, surrounded by everyone. My dad, my brother, my sister, aunts and uncles, friends. All of them gathered around her, smiling. My sister handed my mom the first gift. It was from her. My mom opened it and gasped. "Oh, this is beautiful," she said, holding up a framed photo of the three of them. My mom, my sister, my brother. Taken last Christmas. I wasn't in the photo. I'd been the one taking it. "Let's get a picture of the four of us," my mom said, gesturing to my dad, my sister, and my brother. I started to step forward, but my sister held up her hand. "Actually, let's do one with just us siblings first," she said. She looked at me. "Can you take it?" I stared at her. My brother was already moving into position. My mom was smiling, oblivious. My dad was checking his phone. "Sure," I said. I took the photo. My sister, my brother, my mom between them, all of them smiling. I pressed the button. The camera clicked. "Perfect," my sister said. I handed the phone back and walked into the kitchen. I stood at the sink, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to breathe. James came up behind me. "That's it," he said. "We're leaving." "I can't make a scene," I said. My voice was shaking. "It's her birthday." "You're not making a scene," James said. "They are. They've been making one all day, and you're the only one who doesn't see it." But I did see it. I'd been seeing it my whole life. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. I stayed in the kitchen until the cake was cut. I stayed while people ate. I stayed while they laughed and told stories. I stayed while my mom opened the rest of her gifts. And the whole time, I felt like I was watching from behind glass. There. But not really. When the last guest finally left, I was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Like I'd been holding my breath for hours and had forgotten how to exhale. And then my sister turned to me and said, "Thanks for letting us use your place. It was perfect." That's when I snapped. I don't even remember deciding to say something. One second I was standing there, numb, and the next second the words were coming out. Why wasn't I on the guest list? My sister blinked. "What?" "The guest list," I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "For the party. I saw the email. My name wasn't on it." My sister glanced at my brother. He looked uncomfortable. My dad was already heading toward the door. "You were hosting," my sister said, like it was obvious. "We didn't want to burden you with an invitation. You had enough to worry about." "Burden me?" I repeated. "It's my house. My mother's birthday, and I wasn't even invited?" "You're making this a bigger deal than it is," my brother said. He was using his calm voice. The one he used when he thought someone was being irrational. I turned to my mom. She was sitting on the couch, looking anywhere but at me. "Did you know?" I asked. She hesitated. "Sweetie, I didn't think it mattered. You were here. You were part of it." "I wasn't part of it," I said. "I was staff. I refilled drinks. I took photos. I held coats. But I wasn't part of it." "You're being dramatic," my sister said. "Am I?" I asked. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was just tired. Because from where I'm standing, I've been invisible to all of you for years, and today just made it official. My mom stood up. "This isn't about you," she said. Her voice was soft, but the words hit like a slap. "This is my birthday, and I had a lovely time. I don't understand why you have to ruin it." "This isn't about you." I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, just crack. Like a piece of glass that's been hit just hard enough to splinter but not shatter. "You're right," I said quietly. "It's not about me. It never has been." I walked past them, upstairs to my bedroom. James followed. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. "I'm sorry," James said. "For what?" I asked. "That they're like this," he said. "That they can't see you." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. Downstairs, I could hear voices. My sister's, sharp and defensive. My brother's, low and reasonable. My mom's, tired and confused. And then the front door closed. They left. That night, I cried. Not the angry kind of crying, the grief kind. Because I was mourning something I'd never actually had. A family that saw me. A mother who chose me. A place at a table that was never set for me to begin with. The next morning, the texts started. My sister. "You completely ruined Mom's night. I can't believe you made it about yourself." My brother. "Why do you always have to make things so dramatic? It was just a party." My mom didn't text. She called. I didn't answer. I blocked their numbers. Not forever. Just for a week. Maybe 2. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to stop apologizing for existing. James made me coffee that morning and sat with me on the couch. "What do you need?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I just know I can't keep doing this." "Then don't," he said. And for the first time in my life, I considered it. Not cutting them off completely, but stopping. Stopping the constant effort. Stopping the hope that maybe this time they'd see me. Stopping the belief that if I just tried harder, loved better, gave more, I'd finally be enough. Because the truth is, I was already enough. I'd always been enough. They just couldn't see it, and that wasn't my fault. It was theirs. A few days later, my mom left a voicemail. "Honey, I don't understand why you're upset. Can we please talk?" I haven't called her back yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But if I do, it'll be on my terms. Not because I'm desperate to be seen, but because I've finally learned that I don't need their validation to know I matter. I told James that night, "I'm done trying to earn a seat at a table that was never set for me." He nodded. "Good. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, know this. You're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong people." Drop a comment if you've been there, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories.
"Let's raise a glass," my mother said, her voice gliding over the clink of champagne flutes. "To my beautiful daughter Rachel, our star, our pride, the one who actually finished something." Laughter bubbled around the table like venom in crystal. I just kept cutting my salmon. Quietly, politely, like I had no idea that jab was mine. "She's everything a parent could hope for," my mother continued. "Unlike some who think startups are a personality." More chuckles. A few snorts. My aunt hid her smirk behind her wine glass. Even my father, who used to at least pretend to be neutral, just shook his head with a soft sigh. I sat at the end of the table. No seat card. No introduction. Just extra guest. I hadn't spoken all evening. Not when Rachel twirled her ring to show off the size. Not when someone asked if I was still doing that computer thing. Not even when they told the story of how poor Olivia moved back home last year, conveniently leaving out that it was to nurse our dying grandmother while they were in Spain for a month. I was invisible, just like they liked it, until Daniel, Rachel's fiancé, leaned over and glanced at me, squinting. "Wait," he murmured, almost to himself. "You're Olivia Reed?" The room froze. Rachel's fork hovered midair. My mother's lips parted, suddenly breathless. "You're that Olivia Reed?" Daniel asked again, louder this time. "From, Reed Innovations? The AI encryption protocol." Now, everyone was staring. Eyes bounced between me and Daniel like a tennis match on fire. I finally looked up and smiled softly. "My name is Olivia Reed. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the woman they buried in rumors? She's the one writing the final chapter." The silence at that table was a richer feast than any roast duck they served that night. Daniel blinked. "I've been trying to get a meeting with your company for weeks. Our firm uses your architecture for our entire security pipeline. Your design, it's brilliant." My mother made a choke sound, like a gasp had gotten stuck halfway. "I had no idea Rachel's sister was that Olivia Reed," he added. Rachel's smile cracked. You could almost hear it. "I try to tell them," I said quietly, "but my failure made a better story." My aunt looked mortified. My father suddenly found his wine glass fascinating. Daniel leaned closer. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Because when a room decides who you are, you let them. And then you show up as who you really became." The fork in Rachel's hand clinked onto her plate. The ring didn't shine quite the same anymore. And that was just the beginning. You don't just wake up one day and decide to become invisible. It happens over time, like watching someone erase you with an expensive pen. One line at a time. Growing up, Rachel was the glitter. The one they dressed in gold ribbons and monogrammed dresses. The child who sang off-key in school plays and still got standing ovations. I was the girl with books. The one who remembered homework and won science fairs. But in my house, trophies didn't shine unless they came with a tiara. Mom used to say, "Rachel just gets people. Olivia, you get things. Cold, techie things." She said it with a smile, like it was a compliment. But it never felt like one. Rachel got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. I got a toolkit to fix my own laptop. When I earned a full ride to college, they barely looked up from planning Rachel's prom send-off. I still remember standing in the hallway, acceptance letter in hand, waiting for someone to say we're proud. No one did. I moved out at 19. No drama, no tears. I just knew the air would always be thinner around them, easier for them to breathe without me there. College was the first time I ever felt seen. My professors called me brilliant. My classmates fought to be on my team for group projects. I built my first security protocol at 21. At 22, I was offered a job at a top cybersecurity firm. I took it, quietly. No one at home asked where I was or what I did. That suited me fine. Meanwhile, Rachel changed boyfriends like outfits and still somehow got praised for having standards. She failed out of her marketing degree twice, then finally got a diploma from some online college with a courage to finish certificate. My mother threw her a party with balloons. I didn't get a call on my birthday. The last time I tried to share something real, I told them I was launching my own AI startup. I remember Rachel laughing so hard she cried. "Wait, like, you're gonna be a CEO?" she said, gripping her mimosa. "Do you even own a blazer?" Mom chuckled. Dad just shook his head. "Maybe stick to something safer, Liv. You don't want to embarrass yourself." Embarrass myself. As if their golden daughter hadn't been bailed out of 2 different jobs and a DUI. But failure was forgivable for Rachel. Because she was beautiful. She was charming. She made excuses sound like achievements. And me? I was the quiet one. The serious one. The disappointment they could laugh about at parties. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't cry. I just left early. Every time. Until Grandma got sick. I moved back into the house for 3 months. I bathed her, fed her, stayed up when she forgot where she was, and screamed at shadows. No one else helped. They were too busy. The night she died, Rachel posted a beach photo with the caption, "Heaven gained an angel. We lost our favorite soul. Hashtag R.I.P. Nana." She hadn't seen Nana in 6 weeks. And yet, there were 427 likes. People commenting about how strong Rachel was. No one even knew I was the one who held Nana's hand as she passed. No one asked, but I remembered. All of it. And I was done waiting for them to see me. It started with a text from Claire, an old friend from high school I hadn't seen in years. "Hey, random, but your mom told my aunt you're living in a shelter now. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen. A shelter? I was living in a loft apartment downtown. Sure, it wasn't flashy, but I was paying the rent myself, off freelance contracts that most people would kill for. My latest NDA project was with a global defense firm. I couldn't say much, but let's just say my name was quietly earning respect in rooms I hadn't even stepped into yet. But back home, according to them, I was a failure. Broke. A ghost wrapped in shame. The story must have spread like wildfire at Rachel's bridal shower. I didn't attend, I wasn't even invited. But a girl I barely remembered messaged me. "Hey, Rachel said you're trying to find yourself after your business flopped. Wishing you healing." Healing? I didn't respond. I didn't scream. I didn't call my mom and demand the truth. Instead, I drove to a cafe, opened my laptop, and spent 6 hours rewriting the core of my encryption prototype. Then I submitted it to a lead investor with one line. "You'll want to see what Reed has built." They replied the next day. "Can we set a meeting?" I didn't need my family's approval, but the betrayal still hit in waves, especially when I saw the photos from the shower. Rachel beaming in white. My mom hugging her from behind. The caption, "Proud of our girl, the only one who truly makes us proud." It was surgical, precise, like they'd erased me with intent. I started replaying every family dinner in my head. Every time I'd mention my work and watched their eyes glaze over. Every time someone asked what I did, and my mother jumped in before I could speak. "She's in tech. Something with computers. It's complicated. Complicated." That was her code for "we don't care." Rachel once told a room full of people I was still trying to make apps or whatever, and the table laughed like I was a failed magician. But here's the part they didn't know. The app they joked about? That was a front. A shell company. The real work was behind a black curtain. I was already in talks to license my encryption framework to a government-adjacent firm. I wasn't just in tech. I was building the software they'd use to protect national elections. And they said I was in a shelter. I let them talk. Because people like them? They can only see value when it sparkles on a dress or stares back from a gold-plated invitation. My work didn't come with glitter. Just code. And silence. But silence, when used right, is power. I didn't tell them about the deal. I didn't post about the funding. I just waited. Watched. And prepared. Because they weren't just painting me as a failure, they were cashing in on that narrative. My pain was Rachel's sympathy points. My silence was my mother's social leverage. So, I made a decision. I wouldn't correct them. I'd let the lie grow, until it had roots deep enough to choke them when the truth came to light. And it would. Soon. Because life and revenge are best served with perfect timing. It was 2:13 a.m. when the confirmation hit my inbox. "Congratulations, Ms. Reed. Your funding has cleared." Oh, Reed Innovations is now formally valued at $38.2 million USD. I stared at the screen. Not in disbelief, I knew it was coming. I'd built it line by line of code by line of grief. But still, the moment made my chest ache. Not because I'd made it, but because I knew I wouldn't be able to tell anyone who was supposed to matter. The girl my family called a failure had just signed a deal with a tech giant that ran security infrastructure in over 20 countries. And they still thought I lived in a basement apartment eating tuna out of cans. Let them. Let them laugh at the dust while I built an empire in silence. I wasn't just a CEO. I was an architect of systems, of strategy, and now of poetic revenge. Oh, Reed Innovations was anonymous by design. My face wasn't on the website. My name wasn't on the press release. The logo? Just a single dot and a forward slash. Minimalist. Sharp. Undeniable. My real name only existed in NDAs and encrypted contracts until I chose otherwise. Then came the irony. 3 weeks after the funding, I got a LinkedIn message from someone named Daniel Wyatt. Hi, Olivia. We've never met, but I work at Whitech Security. Our team is trying to read innovations about licensing the 9 encryption protocol. It's honestly revolutionary. I blinked. Rachel's fiancé. Of all the men, in all the firms, in all the industries, it had to be him. He didn't know who I was. Not yet. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my licensing coordinator and instructed them to not respond just yet. Let them wait. Let him squirm in limbo a little longer. The longer the silence, the louder the name would echo. Then the final piece fell into place. Rachel's engagement dinner. My mother sent a group email. No, we'd love to see you. Just. Rachel's engagement dinner will be held next Saturday. Dress appropriately. As if I were the help. I almost deleted it. Then I saw the guest list. Some of the attendees were board members of firms I now silently owned equity in. Whitech CTO would be there. Government advisors. Even a senator. This wasn't just a party. It was a perfect storm. I RSVP'd yes. I chose my dress like I'd choose an outfit for war. Sleek, elegant, black silk with a neckline just sharp enough to remind them I didn't need sequins to shine. My heels were stilettos, but not high enough to slow my stride. I wore my natural curls out, pinned behind one ear. No designer bag. No entourage. Just presence. Because when you've built power brick by digital brick, you don't have to announce yourself. You arrive. And watch the ones who erased you try to remember your name. The night came. The lights were soft. The music expensive. Rachel wore white like a desperate bride in waiting, floating from table to table with a flute of rose and a practiced laugh. I sat near the end. Again. No fanfare. No seat card. Just the girl they all thought they knew. Until her fiancé locked eyes with me. And the code, the real one, started to crack. Daniel kept glancing at me during the toasts, the jokes, the overdone laughter. At first, it was casual, polite even. But the longer the night stretched, the more intense his stare became. Finally, he leaned toward Rachel and whispered something. She smiled, brushed him off, and went back to entertaining their table. But Daniel wasn't done. He stood, walked over to where I was seated, and crouched slightly, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. Sorry, he said, his brows knitting together. You're Olivia Reed, right? I nodded once. His jaw tightened. Wait, the Olivia Reed? From, Reed Innovations. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The air left the room. I felt Rachel's posture stiffen behind me. Her laughter stopped mid-note. My mother, who'd been regaling a guest with a story about Rachel's job interview, one Rachel didn't even get, froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips. Are you kidding me? Daniel said again, louder now, blinking like he'd just seen a ghost. You're the one who built the 9 protocol. I've been trying to get a meeting with your firm for months. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just met his gaze and said calmly, that's me. Silence. Heavy, loaded, humiliating silence for them. My mother spoke first, a shaky attempt at laughter. Well, Olivia dabbles in a lot of things. You know how startups are. No. Daniel cut in, standing fully now, addressing the room. This isn't dabbling. This is one of the most advanced encryption architectures in the global market. Her design could redefine digital infrastructure. Rachel's hand clenched around her wine glass. Her voice trembled. You never said she was in tech. He turned to her. You never said she was the Olivia Reed. Eyes turned. Conversations died. Somewhere, a spoon dropped and clattered against a plate. I sipped my water. Then I turned to Rachel, my voice soft. You told everyone I failed. You didn't think that would ever reach someone who knew the truth. Rachel's lips parted, but nothing came out. I didn't want to ruin your dinner, I continued. But I also didn't come to correct the record. I came because I wanted salmon and silence. One of those is still on the plate. Daniel looked down at me like someone who just realized the diamond was sitting in the dirt the whole time. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to piece things together. "I don't get it," he said. "Why hide all this?" I looked straight at my mother. Because in this family, the truth isn't as useful as the version that gets more sympathy. My aunt coughed. My father found interest in a centerpiece. Rachel stood, shaky, fake smile plastered on. "Let's cut the cake." But the energy had shifted. Permanently. Guests now whispered about me. Not as a tragedy, but as a revelation. I heard one woman murmur, "She's that Olivia Reed?" Another replied, "I thought she was broke?" Daniel didn't move from my side. He just kept looking at me like he'd missed the plot of the story he thought he was starring in. I finished my salmon, pushed back my chair, stood. "Enjoy the cake," I said. And I left without saying another word. But the silence I left behind? It roared louder than anything I could have screamed. Rachel called me the next morning. 3 times. I let the first 2 ring out. I answered the third, not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted her to hear the calm in my voice. "You made a scene," she snapped the moment I picked up. "You knew exactly what you were doing showing up like that." I showed up quietly. "You and your lies did the rest." "Oh, don't act like you're innocent. You humiliated me. In front of Daniel. In front of everyone." I let the silence hang, then replied, "You humiliated me for years, Rachel. I just let the truth sit down at the table." She scoffed. "Daniel's barely spoken to me since. He keeps asking questions. About what we've said. About what we didn't say. About you. Maybe try telling the truth for once. See how that feels." "You're not better than me, Olivia." "I didn't say I was." "Then why do you sound like it?" Click. She hung up. But that wasn't the last I heard from her. Or from anyone else. 2 days later, my mother showed up outside my office building. I didn't even know she remembered where I worked. She looked out of place, too polished, too desperate, standing in a world she never believed I belonged in. I watched her through the tinted glass of the lobby for 5 full minutes before I decided to meet her. She stood when she saw me, eyes tired, voice soft. "Olivia, can we talk? Say what you came to say." Rachel's engagement is on the rocks. Daniel's confused. Hurt. We told him things that weren't entirely accurate. "You told the world I was a failure." "We were just trying to protect her image." "You've always been so private," people filled in the blanks. "No." You handed them the pen. She looked away, then back. "Can you talk to him? Just explain? He respects you now." I almost laughed. "You want me to fix Rachel's engagement?" Her silence was answer enough. I took a step closer. "You erased me for years. Turned me into a cautionary tale. Now you want me to play savior?" "We made mistakes." "No." "You made choices." "Then let me make another," she said quickly. "Let's fix this. As a family." I stepped back. "That's not a family. That's damage control." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That night, Rachel's Instagram account went dark. By morning, the engagement photos were gone. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. People whispered. Friends gossiped. Her perfect image cracked in the most public way possible. And me? I went back to work. I signed 3 more licensing deals. I hired a marketing strategist and told her to make my name known, not for revenge, but for visibility. I was tired of being the girl they used in their fiction. I was ready to be the woman they couldn't deny. In one interview, a tech journalist asked, "You've stayed private for so long. What made you finally speak out?" I looked into the camera and said, "Sometimes the truth needs no defense. It just needs a platform." They tried to bury me in shame, but they forgot. I was the seed. A month after the engagement collapsed, I received an anonymous envelope at my office. Inside was a handwritten note. He left. Said he couldn't marry into a family built on lies. "You win, Rachel." I folded the paper once, then again, and dropped it into the shredder without a second thought. It wasn't about winning. It was about building. And I was just getting started. Oh, Reed Innovations exploded into the global market after my name went public. The same firms that ignored my pitches 2 years ago now lined up to invest. Suddenly, the girl with no blazer was the keynote speaker at cybersecurity summits. But it wasn't just about me anymore. I remembered every time someone like me was dismissed. Too quiet, too odd, too cold. So I created a fund, the Legacy Code Initiative. We mentored young women in tech from underrepresented communities. Paid internships, travel stipends, laptops, mentorship, everything I never got, handed out like gold. I hired women who'd been told, "You don't look like a CTO." Women whose resumes were stronger than their voices because no one ever listened. One of them, a brilliant Nigerian developer named Ifeoma, built a fireproof identity layer on our existing architecture. It made the news. When asked who inspired her, she said, "Olivia Reed taught me to code past the noise, to let my silence do the talking until the world was ready to listen." I sat in my car and cried when I read that, not because I was sad, but because for the first time, I felt like the ashes were blooming into something real. Then came the docuseries request. A producer from Netflix called. They were developing a feature, Anonymous, the women behind the firewalls. I said yes, on one condition, that my story wasn't just about revenge. It had to be about rebirth. We filmed in my first apartment, the cafe where I pitched my company, even the old house, now sold, with a fresh coat of paint and no trace of my childhood inside. I stood outside it for the final scene. The wind caught my curls, and I said, "They left me out of the picture." So I built the frame. And now, I don't need them to see me. The world already does. The episode aired 2 months later. It went viral in under 24 hours. My inbox flooded with messages, some from strangers, others from ghosts, including my father. He wrote a 3-line email. "I watched the show. I was wrong. We all were. You deserved better. I hope you found peace." I didn't reply. Forgiveness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet choice not to engage. Rachel? She went silent, deleted social media, moved cities. But people don't forget the girl they once mocked, especially when she becomes the name on their firewall's credits. And me? I kept building. Not out of spite, but because when people burn your foundation, you don't rebuild the house. You design the skyline. The keynote was at a global leadership conference in Geneva, an arena filled with world leaders, innovators, press, and dreamers. I stood backstage, my hands calm. No index cards. No speech. Just a name badge. Olivia Reed. Founder. Architect. Survivor. The announcer called my name, and I stepped into the lights. A woman once erased, now filled a stage she built herself. I spoke about technology, about ethics, about vision, but mostly I spoke about truth. I was told I failed, I said. But I didn't fail. I grew. In the dark. Where no one could interrupt. They didn't know it, but I was talking about them. My family. Every table where I sat unseen. Every whisper that shaped my silence. We don't always get the family we deserve, but we always have the choice to become the future someone else needs. Applause thundered. I smiled, but not for them, for the girl I used to be. The girl they laughed at. The one who held on to dignity when all they gave her was doubt. Later that night, I took a walk through the city. No bodyguards. No fans. Just me. And my name. I passed a newsstand with a magazine cover featuring me mid-speech. The headline read, "Olivia Reed, the woman who coded her way out of silence." I picked up a copy. I didn't need it, but something about holding it in my hands felt full circle. When I got back to my hotel, there was one last surprise. An envelope slipped under the door. No return address. No handwriting. Inside, just a photo, old and curling at the edges. It was me, at 15, standing awkwardly at one of Rachel's birthday parties, holding her cake while she posed. My mother's hand on Rachel's shoulder. No one looking at me. On the back, written in perfect cursive, I see you now. I'm sorry, Mom. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the photo trembling in my hand. For a moment, I let the ache rise, not because I wanted her apology, but because I'd spent so long needing it. I placed the photo back in the envelope and slid it into the drawer. Then I picked up my laptop, opened a doc, typed the title of my next initiative, the Reed Legacy Fund for Girls Who Are Ignored. Fully funded, open worldwide, accepting dreams no one else wanted to hear. Because that's the legacy I chose. Not a spotlight, not revenge, but quiet justice, paid forward in opportunity and dignity. I closed the laptop, stood, and whispered to no one, but maybe to that girl in the photo. We didn't just survive. We redefined the story. Outside the window, the lights of Geneva shimmered like code waiting to be written. And this time, it was my name on every line. The laughter wasn't loud. That's what made it worse. It was soft, controlled, meant to be cruel only to me. Girls like her, Adam's father said, swirling his wine with contempt, they don't marry for commitment. They marry for comfort. A few guests let out awkward chuckles. Some looked away. Most pretended to keep eating. My hands were still in my lap, fingers curled so tight I could feel my nails pressing into my skin. I hadn't touched my food. Adam leaned forward with a grin, a smug, practiced smirk, and said, "She went from poverty to pearls in weeks. Not bad, huh?" Laughter again. This time it stuck. I felt it in my teeth, my chest, my bones. Even his mother smiled, as if this was all just light teasing. Something I should take as a joke. As if I was lucky to be sitting there, surrounded by crystal, white linen, and a family that never believed I deserved the seat I was in. My throat burned, not from shame, from restraint, because I could have screamed. I could have thrown the champagne in his father's face, slapped the smirk off Adam's lips, stormed out like a scene in a bad soap opera. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up slowly, straightened my dress, took the ring off my finger, and placed it carefully, silently, on the edge of the plate in front of Adam. Gasps. Whispers. A fork dropped to the floor. But I didn't hear any of it. I was already walking. No apology. No speech. No breakdown. Just silence. And then the click of my heels on marble as I left behind the most expensive humiliation I'd ever been gifted. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I already knew what their faces looked like. Shocked. Embarrassed. Still trying to compute that the girl they thought they owned had just walked out of their perfect little performance. I didn't give them the dignity of a scene. I took mine with me. My name is Jasmine Brooks. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the night they mocked my worth was the night I rewrote their legacy. Let them say I was a gold digger. Let them spread the story that I couldn't handle a joke. Let them lie. Because soon, the world would know the truth. Not just about who I was, but about what I became after that night. And, trust me, they should have never handed me that microphone made of shame. They should have never given me that silence. Because I was about to turn it into thunder. You learn to make yourself small when the world around you tells you your dreams are too big. My mother was a seamstress, proud, soft-spoken, and tired. She raised me in a one-bedroom apartment above a nail salon. The wallpaper peeled in corners. The fridge door needed a kick to shut. But the love? That place overflowed with it. I didn't grow up with pearls. I grew up learning how to stretch a dollar, how to find beauty in hand-me-downs, and how to keep your head high when everyone expected you to keep it low. I studied with a flashlight under my blanket while neighbors argued through the walls. I washed uniforms at night, worked diner shifts on weekends, and applied for every scholarship I could find. Every acceptance letter I got, I folded and placed inside an old shoebox under my bed. It wasn't pride. It was proof. Proof that I was clawing my way out. That's where I was when I met Adam. He didn't come from shadows. He came from spotlights. From a world where problems were solved with phone calls, where struggle was just a story they watched in documentaries. We met at a company gala. I was there shadowing the PR team from a fellowship program I nearly didn't get. He was there shaking hands and sipping scotch, a rising star at his father's firm. I knew his type. Glossy, charming, dangerous in the way thunderclouds are, beautiful from a distance, devastating up close. But he noticed me, asked what I was doing there, said I had interesting eyes. I rolled them. He laughed. Something about the way I didn't fall at his feet intrigued him. He pursued me. Hard. Flowers at work. Coffees sent to my co-working space. Dinners at places I couldn't pronounce. He said he admired my drive. That I was refreshing. I let him in slowly, against my better judgment. My mother warned me. Jazz, rich men like that don't love women like us. They collect us. I thought she was being bitter. Turns out she was being wise. Adam was never overtly cruel. He was polished in his condescension. You're not like other girls from your background, he'd say, as if that was a compliment. He joked that he was rescuing me from ramen and roommates. I'd laugh at first. I didn't want to seem sensitive. He was just being playful, right? Until his mother invited me to brunch and brought a bag of her old jewelry, smiling sweetly as she said, "These should help you look the part." Until his father sat across from me during lunch and said, "So, what's the real plan here, Jasmine? Secure the ring, then the assets." I smiled, bit my tongue, paid for my own lunch. I wanted to believe Adam was different. That love could be louder than legacy. That maybe, just maybe, someone from privilege could see beyond the surface. But looking back, I think he loved the idea of me. The struggle made me a good story to tell. He liked how I looked beside him, like proof of his generosity, his open-mindedness. But he never wanted me at the table. He wanted me beneath it. Grateful, quiet, owned. And I was none of those things. Not for long. The first time I thought about leaving Adam, we were sitting at a rooftop bar, and he laughed at a story I was telling, not because it was funny, but because it embarrassed me. I'd told him how I used to sell handmade bracelets in high school to help with rent. His response? "God, babe, that's so cute." Like a charity case with ambition. He kissed my cheek like it was meant as a compliment. I smiled, but something in me cracked. He always did that, wrapped insults in ribbon. Called me adorable when I was being assertive. Called my goals cute when I dared to dream too loud. But the worst part? I let him. Because when you come from scarcity, sometimes attention feels like love, even when it comes with knives. He gave me gifts, trips, showed me off to friends who whispered things they thought I couldn't hear. She's got that glow-up story energy. She better be worth the brand rub. She's beautiful, in a grounded sort of way. I laughed along, pretended not to notice, told myself love meant compromise. But real love doesn't require you to erase yourself. And Adam was slowly trying to turn me into a portrait he could hang, not a partner he could stand beside. The red flags weren't waving. They were dancing in my face. Like the prenup his father casually slid across the brunch table one Sunday. "We just want to protect family assets," he said, smiling without warmth. You understand, I hadn't even accepted Adam's proposal yet. When I looked at Adam, waiting for him to defend me, he just shrugged. It's standard. Not a big deal. It was always not a big deal when it was about my dignity. When his mother offered to have her stylist give me a class polish before our official engagement photos. When his cousin whispered, "At least she'll raise hardworking kids." When Adam said after I launched my small consulting gig, "Cute. You've got a hobby now." I told myself I was overreacting, that I had to adjust, that love required bending. But every time I bent, something sacred inside me snapped. I miss my old self, the girl who hustled, who dreamed big without asking permission, the woman who didn't wait to be introduced, she arrived. Fierce. Focused. Adam didn't kill her, but he had me hiding her. Until one night, I stayed up till 3 a.m. staring at my business analytics. My client base had doubled in the past 2 months. My consulting packages were being shared in elite circles. A woman I'd helped land her first investor emailed me. "You don't just teach us strategy. You remind us we're worth something." And I realized something profound. I'd spent so long trying to fit into Adam's world. I hadn't noticed I was already building one of my own. That's when the plan started. I didn't need revenge. I needed release. I quietly separated my finances, took my name off shared accounts, moved client communications to a private line. And then, just 1 week before the engagement dinner, I got the call. A private equity firm wanted to invest in my company. 7 figures. Up front. And suddenly, I wasn't just the girl who rose from nothing. I was a woman holding everything. And that dinner? That was going to be their final show. And my quietest exit. I didn't want a scene. I wanted strategy. By the time Adam's family booked the venue for the engagement dinner, I had already put the wheels in motion. I opened a second business account in my name only, transferred the full down payment from the private equity deal there, discreetly. No social media announcement, no confetti. Just cold, silent growth. I changed the passwords on my business platforms, revoked Adam's email access for security. He didn't notice. He never really paid attention to details that didn't benefit him. Instead, he paraded me around like a well-groomed secret, someone to show off at functions but never empower behind the scenes. I let him, because when you want someone to underestimate you, there's no better disguise than their own arrogance. I started keeping copies of every financial document, invoice, and client agreement in a private drive. Made sure every trace of my worth was no longer tied to his family's approval.
Even my wardrobe changed.
I stopped wearing the things his mother gifted me, those recycled blazers and handbags that whispered, "Be grateful we included you." I went back to my own style. Bold.
Sharp.
My roots, not theirs. Every move I made was surgical. Because revenge isn't loud. It's precise. The final piece was my exit plan. I secured a penthouse office in a co-working tower downtown. Paid 6 months in advance. Hired an assistant, a single mom who reminded me of my own mother's resilience. I even ordered a custom plaque for the glass door. Jasmine Brooks, CEO, Brooks and Bloom Consulting. It gleamed in silver. No pearls. Just earned polish. When Adam asked me if I was excited for the engagement dinner, I smiled sweetly. Thrilled. He kissed my forehead like I was a good girl. And I let him believe the illusion he so badly needed, that I was just the accessory to his legacy. But that legacy? It was already crumbling. Because in the week leading up to the dinner, his latest startup pitch failed. 3 investors pulled out. And one of them now funded me. He had no idea I was the reason they'd redirected capital. That my name, invisible in his world, had echoed in the rooms where money changed hands. He was too busy picking out napkin colors and dinner music. I watched him the night before the dinner as he practiced his toast in the mirror. "Jasmine is proof that love can lift someone up," he said with a smile. I nearly laughed. Love didn't lift me. I did. Love didn't build my business. I did. Love didn't walk through fire and show up with scars and dignity intact. That was all me. But I let him rehearse. Let him believe. Because the most beautiful part of walking away is letting them think they're holding you, right until you open your hand and reveal. You were never holding on to them. They were just passing through. And tomorrow night, they'd see exactly what happens when the woman they tried to shrink decides to grow, unapologetically, in silence, in strength, and on her own terms. The room was dipped in gold. Gold chairs, gold chargers, gold-trimmed name cards. Even the floral centerpieces glinted under chandeliers, like someone had ordered excessive wealth with a side of ego. I walked in alone. No +1. No apology. Wearing a fitted black dress that hugged like a secret and heels that clicked like punctuation. Heads turned. Not because I was overdressed, but because I finally looked like I didn't need anyone's approval. Adam greeted me with a practiced smile.
"Wow.
"You clean up." I nodded. "I'm not here to be cleaned." He laughed. Thought I was joking. Of course he did. His mother air-kissed my cheeks like a socialite claiming territory. "Glad you wore something simple," she whispered. "Wouldn't want to outshine the family." Outshine? Lady, I built a company while you built centerpieces. I took my seat. The speeches began. His cousin talked about how Adam has always had great taste. Even as a boy, he picked the best toys. The room chuckled. His father stood, champagne in hand, ego in full bloom. "We are so proud to welcome Jasmine into our family," he said. "She reminds us that with the right support, anyone can rise." Whispers. Laughter. Eyes shifting my way. Then he added, eyes gleaming, "Girls like Jasmine know how to upgrade their lives. From humble beginnings to pearls. Isn't that right, son?" Adam smirked. "She upgraded real quick." Laughter this time didn't just tingle, it cut. "And Adam?" He laughed with them. That was the moment. Not the insult. Not the dig. But the smirk. The betrayal wrapped in a smile. A man so comfortable letting me be the punchline. I stood. Quietly. Not rushed. Not emotional.
Just done.
I slipped the ring off my finger. The same ring his mother once said would look more believable after you tone up your hands. I placed it gently in front of Adam's plate. Gasps circled like perfume. I turned to his father. "Thank you for your generosity," I said, evenly. "And your clarity." Then I turned to Adam. He looked confused, like he'd lost his place in a script. "I was never yours," I said softly. "You just mistook my grace for gratitude." I looked around the table. Every smug face. Every empty smile. Every eye that had once looked through me now suddenly frozen. "This dinner didn't expose me," I said, lifting my chin. "It exposed all of you." Then I walked away. No tears. No raised voice. Just the sound of my heels tapping through their silence. One guest stood to clap. Only one. A woman I didn't recognize. Maybe someone's date. Maybe someone who had been where I was once. But that single clap? It echoed louder than all their laughter. Outside, I took a breath. The city looked the same, but something had shifted. I hadn't just walked out of a dinner. I'd walked out of a narrative. And the girl they mistook for a decoration? She had just become the headline. It started with a text from one of Adam's groomsmen. "Yo, what happened last night?" Twitter's blowing up. I hadn't posted a word. I didn't need to. Someone at the dinner had recorded the moment. The father's speech, Adam's smirk, my ring landing on the plate like a mic drop in gold. By morning, the video had over 400,000 views. By lunch, it had a hashtag. Hashtag, she did not come to beg. People weren't just watching.
They were feeling it.
Women from around the world posted their own stories of walking out of rooms that try to shrink them. The comment sections exploded with quotes from my quiet takedown. "You mistook my grace for gratitude. This dinner didn't expose me. It exposed all of you." And Adam? He tried to fight the current. He posted a selfie that morning with a caption. "Sometimes people can't handle real love." The comments? Brutal. Real love doesn't laugh when you're being insulted. "She was too good for you, and you proved it. Bro, just sit this one out." His startup, the one he was courting investors for, lost 3 key backers in 24 hours. Not because of what happened, but because who I was finally came to light. Someone leaked my company's pitch deck. Then an article dropped. Jasmine Brooks, the tech strategist they called a gold digger. They told the real story. My story. The one Adam never asked about. My rise. My business. My plans to fund female-led startups in underserved communities. My 7-figure valuation. Suddenly, I wasn't Adam's ex. I was Jasmine Brooks, CEO, survivor, architect of my own success. His world unraveled. I heard from friends of friends that he went into damage control mode. Jazz overreacted, he said in one interview. It was just a joke. But the internet didn't forget. And neither did I. Meanwhile, Adam's father went silent. No statements. No apologies. Just a sudden cancellation of his speaking gig at a business summit the next week. Turns out, insulting women trying to escape poverty isn't great for public image. I didn't reach out. Didn't answer calls. Didn't open emails. Just watched as the pedestal they placed themselves on cracked beneath the weight of their own arrogance. I didn't need to destroy them. They did that just fine without me. And me? I kept building. I got invited to speak at a women's finance summit. All expenses paid. Topic? Walking out with wealth, when silence is louder than revenge. The irony? The keynote was supposed to be Adam's father. They replaced him with me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correction. They taught me I wasn't enough unless I was quiet, small, grateful.
But now?
I was loud in all the right ways. Visible in rooms they couldn't control. And I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because once a woman sees her worth, she never forgets it again. And neither do the men who tried to laugh it away. There's something deeply powerful about being underestimated. They saw me as decoration, a girl upgraded from grit to gloss. They didn't see the spreadsheets behind my smile, the silent hustle, the nights I bled into code while they slept on silk pillows. But now, the curtain had lifted, and what they dismissed as cute ambition had turned into capital, headlines, and movement. The day my Forbes feature dropped, I was in sweats, sipping instant coffee, hair in a pineapple bun. The headline? She was called a gold digger at her own engagement dinner. Now she funds futures. They used a photo from the Women's Summit, me standing at the podium, hand midair, fire in my eyes. The article didn't focus on Adam, not even his father. It focused on the women I was hiring, the programs I launched, the fact that I'd taken every insult, every smirk, every "you're lucky to be here," and turned it into a consulting empire helping marginalized founders secure capital, confidence, and control. They wrote, Jasmine Brooks didn't walk out. She walked up. And she's not waiting for anyone to catch up. And just like that, I wasn't viral noise. I was a force. I launched a scholarship fund in my mother's name, the Myra Brooks Initiative for First-Generation Women in Tech. Applications poured in. I gave a TEDx talk called Silence Isn't Weakness, It's Strategy. I signed a book deal. The working title? Pearls Were Never the Goal. The irony? 2 of Adam's former investors reached out to me. One said, "We backed the wrong person. You were the brain the whole time." I didn't gloat. I just replied, "You finally read the fine print." Then came the email I didn't expect. From Adam.
Jazz.
I know I messed up. I was stupid. I see it now. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time. There was a time I would have replied instantly. Maybe even apologized.
But now?
There was nothing left to say. He'd already said enough that night. And I'd already answered, with my heels, my silence, and the empire I built without needing his name. I archived the message. Not to ignore it. To preserve it as proof. Proof that the girl who once sold bracelets to help her mom now wore her own name like a crown. Later that month, a journalist asked me during an interview, "What would you say to the women who are still sitting at those tables, swallowing insults in silence?" I thought about that for a moment, then said, "You don't owe anyone your silence to be seen. Walk out if you must. But don't just walk away, walk towards something greater." The clip went viral. Again. Because truth always echoes louder than shame. And I had finally learned I was never meant to belong at their table. I was meant to build my own. Longer. Louder. Wiser. With no room for mockery. Only momentum. It arrived in a cream envelope. Thick paper. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a single note. "Jasmine, I watched your TEDx talk. You've become more than I ever imagined. Maybe I didn't know how to support someone like you. Maybe I was scared. Either way, I'm sorry. Adam." I read it once. Then again. And then I folded it gently and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not to save it. To bury it. Because closure doesn't come wrapped in apologies from men who clapped while your spirit was cracked open on fine china. It comes when you look at the woman in the mirror and no longer see the girl who needed them to see her. Closure is when you no longer need to explain why you left the table. It's knowing you built your own and filled it with voices that never made you beg for your place. The final shift came when I received a call from a national leadership summit. They wanted me as their closing speaker. The theme? From breaking point to blueprint. I said yes, not because I needed to speak, but because someone out there still hadn't found the words to walk away. And I wanted to be the voice that told her she didn't need to ask permission to rise. I stood at that podium in a silk suit the color of fire, looked out at hundreds of faces, some young, some weathered, all listening. I took a breath and began. Once upon a time, I was called a gold digger. They said I came from nothing, that I wore ambition like borrowed pearls. But they forgot. I never needed gold. I just needed space. The room was still. Then a roar. A standing ovation. Not for my past, but for what I'd built beyond it. Afterward, a woman approached me, late 30s, soft eyes. She gripped my hand. I handed back the ring last week, she whispered. Because of you. And just like that, I knew none of it was wasted. Not the silence. Not the heartbreak. Not even the laughter that tried to break me. They all became brick and mortar for something real. Something worthy. Back home, I framed the Forbes article beside my mother's old sewing machine. She cried when she saw it. You were always going to shine, she said, even when they tried to dim you. I nodded, because I finally believed her. And on the wall of my new office, behind my desk, there's a quote, in gold letters, unapologetically large. She didn't upgrade her life. She created it. That's my legacy. Not revenge. Not the ring I returned, but the fire I carried out with me and used to light the way for every woman still sitting in rooms that want to keep her small. They thought they broke me that night, but what they really did was show me who I wasn't, so I could finally remember who I am.